Tonight, we are living through a moment that future generations may look back on as a turning point in human history. For over 80 years, the truth about unidentified anomalous phenomenon has been buried in secrecy. But now, disclosure is no longer a question of if, it's a question of how and when. My guest tonight is Sara Nelson, the New Paradigm Institute's executive director, and together we're diving into what disclosure really means, who's pushing for the truth, and why this moment matters for all of humanity. Welcome to the Disclosure Dialogues. I'm your host, Leslie Klein. Now, Sara Nelson is a co founder and executive director of the Christic Institute, which became the Romero Institute in 1995. The Romero Institute is an interfaith law and policy center based in Santa Cruz, California. For more than 40 years, the Romero Institute has combined public education, grassroots organizing, and high impact litigation to expose sources of injustice and promote life sustaining solutions. You may be familiar with some of their past feats, which include justice for Karen Silkwood, the 3 Mile Island incident, the Iran Contra affair, the Greensboro civil rights, and the Lakota Law Project. She's a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley, was a television anchor and journalist, and also a leader in the National Organization of Women Feminist Movement. Please welcome to the stage Sara Nelson. Sara, so great to see you. Thank you for being with us tonight.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And I do want to say to our audience that you can comment on this broadcast and ask questions at any time. And our first comment is from Derek Broussard. He says, I am so excited for this. So, Sara, yes, I am too. As I've done some research about you, I am so in awe of all that you've done for so many social justice causes and the women's movement. And, from my heart, I want to say thank you because, I was a teenager in the 70s when all of, what the feminist movement did for me was believe that I could do anything, as a woman, that there were no limitations. And so I just want to say thank you because of your work and of all the work of the people that you worked with, it's made such a difference in the world. So thank you.
Very welcome.
So let's get into it. Now, one of the first questions I had was, with your history and all of these different social justice causes that you've been involved with, what motivated you to pursue the righting of wrongs in society?
Well, I've often wondered about that myself. And the truth of the matter is that I think I was, I think maybe our past lives have something to do with when we come into this incarnation and we have a very strong orientation towards certain kinds of work or research or pursuit of knowledge, or that because they used to call me a do-gooder when I was a little girl, because I would bring people home that didn't have enough food, and I'd bring them home for lunch, and just I was always doing these things that had to do with being of assistance to people who had particular difficulties and struggles. And so I think there's some sort of old orientation towards justice work and work for the least of these, which is a Christian comment. It's very, very profound. And so there's that, and then there's another piece to it, and that is that the family that I was in, which is a wonderful, in some ways, just a total blessing, up in North Dakota. My dad was the oldest of 11 children, but it was a very patriarchal family. And in that time, because I'm an older boomer, in that time we didn't have the feminist movement hadn't really happened yet. It started in the mid '60s, but it was in full swing in the '70s, and this was earlier than that. And so it was very patriarchal, and there was just no recognition for the fact that women could provide leadership, or women could do anything except cook and have children and be supportive of men. So when I encountered the women's movement, it was very important to my soul, because I was very troubled by some of the social habits and what have you that we had in the 50s. And so that was, and it was in now that I began to learn about organizing, educating, fundraising, all the things that you have to learn about if you want to make a difference in the social justice world. If you want to have impact, you want to get something done, which I had that orientation. Because you can spend your life kind of educating and working on your consciousness, which is great, and it's a very important part of it. But then there's also the question of, are you going to actually get it done? And and I learned a lot about that in the feminist movement in the '70s, a lot about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I'm right.
Question?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Just pushing the right buttons to get me back on here. That's wonderful. So tell us, when did Dan? We know that Danny Sheehan is your life partner. So
Yeah.
when did you guys meet? Tell us about when you guys met, and what was that like?
Well, I had been working with the first nonprofit film company in the United States in the '60s when I graduated, and when I left Berkeley, graduated from Berkeley, and it was in San Francisco. And we were making films and distributing films about the Vietnam War, about the civil rights movement in the United States, about poverty at home and abroad, and it was we were distributing these films all over the country. I'm prefacing this because it's important to all the work that we've done together, and I learned some really important things with our film company, and that was a couple of really important things. One is to just a film, or in this case now a video, is an organizing tool, an educating organizing tool, and activists all over the country from all different constituencies and all different sort of political persuasions. So they need an organizing and educational tool very often, because they may not feel capable of articulating all the details of something. And our most popular film was one by a fellow who was a known New York Times journalist who was in Vietnam for years and reporting out of Vietnam. And we did a film with him. Oh, it was just a talking head, but people all over the country wanted to bring that in and show it to people in their communities, because he was telling it like it really was, which was, that we needed to get out of there, actually, that it was not good what was happening. And he was very articulate about it, and that helped all the activists, because after they showed the film, they could then talk about what they were going to do about it. Are they going to march in their town? Are they going to hold a press conference? Are they going to form a coalition? What are they going to do? But the arguments and the educational material was given to them by us. And that was really important to learn. And secondly, to learn that to work with everybody. I mean, there was another film company that was what I would say more far left, and they only worked with certain constituencies. We worked with everybody. And our films, sometimes we would send this particular Vietnam film into Minneapolis, and that film would change hands 3 times on Saturday, 3 times on Sunday, as different groups used it. in their different constituencies. They could be student groups, the business women, the Methodists, or the Presbyterians, or the Catholics, or the people at the university. It would change hands, and people would use it in their gatherings, right? So I made a film with the help of a feminist about the founding conference of the Coalition of Labor Union Women in Chicago, and that was in the 70s, and was so successful. It was the first time organized women in the unions had ever gotten together to talk about their problems as women in the unions. So they thought maybe they'd have 1,000 women there or something. They had 3,200 women show up. It was humongously successful in terms of people coming to the conference, and I went to that, and I videotaped it and captured the spirit of it and the primary messages of it. And I took that with the help of others to the East Coast to try to raise money to turn it into a film, because at that time everybody didn't have a video machine. And so you thought, well, if you're going to make an organizing tool for people and for the union women, you've got to make it into a film, because not everybody has a video machine. Well, nowadays, of course, it's very different. But at that time, anyway, so I was showing this film up and down the East Coast to all different kinds of, national offices, trying to find people who would help me. And I couldn't get it changed, but in the process of doing that, even though I couldn't raise the money, I got a letter from the National Organization for Women asking me if I wanted to be the head of the labor committee of NOW nationally, because they understood what I was doing with this film, promoting the needs and problems of union women. So at the I really thought it was sort of a sacred kind of request of some kind. I didn't. It was something out of the blue, that this letter, but I felt very strongly that I should say yes. So I did, and it was in about 8 months later or so, a woman came to see me about the Karen Silkwood case, because Karen Silkwood was a union worker in a nuclear plant in Oklahoma, a plutonium plant, and she had been killed while she was delivering evidence of toxic releases and the toxifying of workers and the public, et cetera, at that plant. And because she was killed, this NOW woman said that the national folks sent her to me because it was a union issue. And by that time, we already had about 8 different projects going around the country. We were supporting the textile workers, the women textile workers. We were the women who were working in the chicken plants down south. We were doing a different projects. But this was unusual. I mean, I really didn't know anything about nuclear problems and issues. But again, I had a very strong sense that this would be the right thing to do. And then I think I had a pretty strong feeling they killed her. And so we took it on, and we ended up getting a couple congressional hearings. We had chapters working on it all over the country. The NOW chapters were working on it. They were putting tables together and having people write letters to their congresspeople, handwritten letters. We want a congressional investigation to find out what happened to Karen Silkwood. We want to know how her documents disappeared from her car, who ran her off the road, and who contaminated her house with high levels of plutonium, even the highest levels being in the food in the refrigerator. And because she was working for the safety of the public and the other workers, and it somehow resulted in her being killed. So what's happening here? And we created so much pressure on the Congress that we did get the hearings. And we got two public hearings, which one of them was on the front of Time magazine, because it was releasing really important information that the government investigator had uncovered. And so the point is, it was in this process that I met Danny. Because while we were working on the congressional hearings, which were very important at that time, we became aware that it wasn't going to get done without a lawsuit. Because the Congress was supposed to do a third hearing. They backed out. And there's a whole story behind that, which I won't go into now. But the point is, we realized, wow, if we're going to really find this out, we're going to have a lawyer that help find a lawyer that will represent her kids and her family, her estate, and file a lawsuit. So we were looking, and another Now woman knew of Danny, and said, because we didn't have any money, and every lawyer that we talked with, wanted $40,000 to start, or $50,000. And it was like, oh my gosh. So Danny was working for the Jesuits. He was in the Jesuit office as an attorney, and he said, I'll do it. I'll file it for you. And so he very rapidly started pulling all the information together. And because there was a deadline, the statute of limitations, you had to file by a certain time or it didn't count anymore legally. So we made that deadline. And here were all these Now women down in the Jesuit office in the middle of the night, helping Danny print out all these different copies that had to be printed to be sent to the various legal offices. And they accidentally set off all the alarms, and the Jesuits were coming down. What are all these women doing everywhere? In the middle of the night. It was one of those moments. But anyway, so that's how we met. When we first met was around us searching for a lawyer, and we were, he said he knew immediately when he saw me, and he called a couple other women and said, I'm not going to be seeing you anymore, because he was certain he was going to be focusing on seeing me. And for me, it was the second time I saw him. The first time I was making a speech and he was there. But we are, I guess, what you call soulmates. I mean, so we came together in this lifetime to do this work together, which we've been doing, since 1976.
Yeah.
And I feel profoundly grateful that we met. Yes. And there's never been any question. We just keep doing one project after another and building on whatever we learn and bringing it to the next one. And it's an inner drive to do this. It's just an inner drive.
Right. How interesting that the first case had to do with nuclear, right? And now nuclear is also an issue in the current UAP topic, of disclosure. So let's get a little bit more into, we could talk for hours, I think, about your history and all that you guys have done, but I know that our audience does want to find out more about UAP. This is our current focus. So how did you come up with the idea for Citizens for Disclosure as the grassroots movement of the New Paradigm Institute?
Well, this is interesting. Some people probably think, why does this woman always talk about the Silkwood case? Because it was so long ago. But it's because all the components were there that we now work on. And the question of the grassroots was we were working with the grassroots network of Now. And it was the Now chapters all over the country that made some very, very important things happen in the Silkwood case. Plus, that's where we learned to work with celebrities, because very well-known musicians were holding concerts and raising money for the lawsuit. And that's where we learned to have a national alliance, because we had 7 constituencies working together. And each one of them had a different angle on why they were interested in Silkwood. the fellow from the ACLU was interested in the civil liberties violations, the wiretapping of her. That's how they knew she was going to be on the road that night, so they could run her off the road. The feminists were concerned about a leader being killed, a female and feminist leader being killed. The Jesuits were concerned about the moral issues and the nuclear thing, because they had been working on, Danny and others had been working on getting all the religious denominations to oppose nuclear weapons and to call for disarmament of nuclear weapons. And then you had the Environmental Institute. That whole network was concerned about the environmental issues. You had the anti-nuke movement, which was made up of many chapters sort of around the country that had never worked together on anything. And they ended up working together once a year on the anniversary of her death. And it was the first thing they ever did together, collaboratively, is have Karen Silkwood days once a year, and that went on for a long time. It may still be going on, and so the formula, so to speak, for the way that we work when we approach a major project, all comes out of Silkwood, and it was a little different than other groups, because on the one hand, you might have one group over here really focusing on litigation, and over here you'd have really focusing on education, and maybe over here organizing, grassroots organizing, mobilization, marches. We were spanning about 8 different tactical components all at once, and that all started with Silkwood. And the grassroots component, particularly in the disclosure movement, now, and believe me, this is, in our opinion, the most important project we've ever done in our entire lives. Requires everything we've ever learned, and which we're trying every day to bring to the table. And thirdly, the grassroots component in the disclosure movement is one of the 3 absolutely critical legs. There's about 8 legs, but it's a critical leg. It's already very, very clear after 80 years of secrecy around this, and the national security state putting things behind national security classified categories. They're only going to release as much as they absolutely have to. And there's 3. The major components that are absolutely necessary in terms of the tactical plan is the pressure from the voters, the growth of a movement that has a voice and is trained to have impact. And then the litigation and investigation, which finds out what the real crimes are that they're hiding. Because it isn't only that there's secrecy because they think there are national security problems, which then they think in that lens, and so they're always thinking like that. But there's also crimes that have been committed, serious ones. And so they don't want their friends in the national security community, it's a small community that's doing this. They don't want them to go to jail. And so that's why they're talking about immunity. How can we get immunity? How can we get amnesty? And we understand all of that. But we've lived long enough to know that sometimes everybody just gets immunity, but they don't have to do anything. The documents, the legal documents that Danny's writing right now, and was writing all through the Christmas holiday season, he's writing them in such a way. He's covering so many different issues like whistleblower protection and other things. But one of the things he's doing is making it clear that when it comes to immunity and amnesty, it has to be an exchange for real deep information. It can't be just, oh, okay, now everybody has immunity. It's like George Bush pardoned all of the people we were suing in the Iran-Contra case, which was a huge case.
Hmm.
Danny named 29 people in that RICO filing,
Hmm.
and then exposed their crimes, which no one else was doing, including the Congress, which was having regular hearings every day. Um, this is like this. This is like the Iran Contra RICO case in that it's going to be necessary to understand all the crimes, who did what, when they did it, what the chronology of it all is, the details of all that. Because then people are going to say, the people who have done these crimes and been involved in this secrecy, they're going to say, well, if I talk, can I have immunity?
Hmm.
But without that pressure of, well, if you don't talk, you could end up in jail.
Hmm.
So it's a chess game.
Hmm. And probably multidimensional as well.
Right. Right.
So you're saying that the UAP disclosure movement is the most important effort that you guys have focused on over all these years.
Absolutely.
And why would you say, what, in a nutshell, why would you say that is?
Well,
Why is it the most
because
important?
this is in our opinion, our conclusion is that this is the most important moment in human history. After we have disclosure, nothing will ever be the same again. It's like going into an entirely new age where many, 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 many things are different because it it is going to affect our identity of who we are on Earth, who we are in the galaxy, who we are in the cosmos. It's going to affect our it's going to change the narrations in our religious constituencies because our story is going to be a different story than the one that we or maybe an elaboration of the story that we already have, but it's definitely going to change, and our economy is going to change because the clean energy sources that will be available to us, we could move from an economy of scarcity where you must have poverty, where you will always have poverty, because it's based on that you have to have that in a scarcity economy, um, to an economy oriented towards abundance and meeting everyone's needs. It's a very different kind of thing. Um, we will have, hopefully, we'll put to rest this entire nuclear arms race
Mhm.
and the armament race because it's a threat to all life on planet Earth, and it's ridiculous at this point that we're still doing this. It's so dangerous, and we should be able to deal with our pollution issues because for instance, just give you an example on this, in Fukushima, where there was a lot of release of very dangerous radiation.
Mhm.
Um, there were UFOs. The scientists had been measuring the levels of radiation in this area of land that had been so contaminated, and so they knew what the levels were. And then when the ships came, the UFOs, and were around, and then when they left, they measured it, and it was less radiation.
Mhm.
So they realized there was something that they knew how to do
Mhm.
that could deal with that. That could be extremely important to us because we have nuclear facilities on the ocean all over the world. They're all over the place because they need the water to keep as a coolant
Mhm.
for these nuclear plants. And so there's all this waste that's been collected and buried in really temporary containers that
Mhm.
eventually leak. Um, but if we have sea rise, if we got, for instance, to 100 feet of sea rise, which we might if you have the melting of all the glaciers everywhere, then all of that's going to get invaded. all of that waste. So anyway, there's a whole movement on pollution. There's a whole movement on nuclear war and nuclear weapons and peace. There's another one on climate and the environment, and which the ETs have been talking to us, saying, you're affecting the biosphere. You're not taking care of your planet properly. You shouldn't be doing this. I mean, they've over and over again dealt with pollution, climate change in the environment, and nuclear over and over the years, over the decades. So we know there's a possibility that they have techniques that could be very helpful to us. So now, and I'm putting all of that aside, and of course the technology that goes with a whole new kind of energy, they have a physics that we don't have. I mean, they're so advanced in their physics. But probably if you put all of those sort of practical pluses together, but then you add over here the consciousness issue, that our consciousness could grow from being one of, okay, let's keep fighting with one another, nation to nation. We fight, we want control of property, of minerals, of resources, and if we have to, we'll invade you to get them. And this kind of struggle to survive on planet Earth using those tools, which is all understandable, right? It's all understandable. All species have been trying to survive, and they've been, territorial and using dominance and different things to protect themselves and to be able to grow and be able to survive. But, we've gotten to the point where we could kill ourselves doing this.
Right.
Either with climate or with nuclear war or with pollution. Any of these things taken to their logical end are no longer for survival. They're actually threatening to our survival.
Right.
And so to us, there's nothing else in sight that we can see that has the capacity to shift our consciousness as quickly as this does. So that if we could get disclosure, the whole human family would go through a shift. And depending on the leadership at that point, please, I mean, depending on, we have to have good leaders that will help us go through this kind of a transition in a positive way, going towards a positive future, not going towards, okay, let's muscle up here and get ready to fight these ETs.
Right. We really have to make that shift from the old paradigm to the new paradigm, which is why the New Paradigm Institute is such a perfect name. I want to share.
Yes.
I want to share a comment from Stan Brooks. He says, "Thanks for your lifelong efforts and passion. Regarding disclosure moving forward, what needs to happen for full disclosure, and should we settle for partial disclosure?"
Of course. Okay. The way that we approach these kinds of things, and we talk about this all the time now, because Danny's writing another RICO case, and also a bill for Congress that he was asked to develop. So what he does with this kind of stuff is he puts in what he believes is really necessary for a positive future, right? So he doesn't negotiate in the beginning. He puts forth what it is that really he thinks needs to happen. So in the case of protection of whistleblowers, he has it really well laid out of how you really protect disclosure whistleblowers that have to do with the ET UFO arena. It's not that it wouldn't also affect people in Epstein and stuff, but he's really designed it for now. It doesn't mean that by the time you actually got a bill passed, that everything that he wanted in it would still be in it. You can't really tell in the beginning what the dynamics are going to be, what the negotiations will be, because Disclosure requires, there's two ways to have disclosure. One is we can do our private investigation, which we have begun. That is in play. And that is very serious because we've done very serious professional investigations in the past. The most well-known one, of course, was Iran-Contra, but where we exposed all kinds of things that no one else was exposed.
When you're saying that disclosure, you're talking about the national security state?
Yes, because
More of a government
Iran-Contra,
disclosure?
in Iran-Contra, there was an illegal war being committed against Nicaragua. The Congress said, stop, don't do that anymore. They continued doing it anyway. There were assassination programs, illegal gun and drug running, guns down, drugs back, guns down, because they were trying to find other ways of funding it besides, because the Congress said no with congressional money. So they were doing it with drugs, heavy duty drugs, and cocaine was everywhere in the country. In all the little small towns, they were like, what is this? We've never seen this before. And there was also, constitutional violations, very, very serious ones. So there were all these things going on, and but they weren't talking about all of them in the congressional hearings, but we were. And it was in our legal documents, and we made our legal documents available to the public and to our network, our grassroots network. We had teams all over the country that were gathering people in their communities and showing them videos and showing them the documents. And so it was just like growing like a big organic movement. And so this one is like that in that you have to have some participation by Congress. And they have to participate in the disclosure. They also have to participate in the new policies. And you don't know, all you can do for sure is if they ask you to, which we're blessed that we've been asked, is you could design it to be as strong as you think it needs to be and to accomplish the real disclosure without negotiating away really important things. But then you go into a process where different congressional people are behind closed doors having their own conversations. In other words, it's not under our control. It's a total blessing to be asked to help with it, because then your input can maybe set it going, get the cart going in the right direction on the right roads. And then you can participate, and then you can hopefully have a grassroots network that is really putting the pressure on all over the place for their Congress people to participate in disclosure. And you can do all of this, but you can't know exactly what the end is going to look like, because it's humans. But you just work as hard as you can and try to be as awake as you can and listen to one another. We get calls from Citizens for Disclosure people all the time where they're, you got to look at this. Here, I'm sending you this. I just found out about this. And it becomes like a huge organism of everybody trying to figure out how to get disclosure to happen. And ultimately, you hope that you will not negotiate it away and it will not become weak, but you can't tell for sure how the end is going to look. Did I overtalk that?
No, I think that yes, that explains. You answered my question.
Okay.
Now, let's. Derek Broussard has a question. He wants to know how will we move forward in general after disclosure. He feels like the public will lose all trust in our institutions after the truth comes out about how complicit they were in the cover-up. Can you address that?
Well, there will be some loss. I think I'm not exactly sure, because we don't have full disclosure yet, right? But I think that as a small element, people will be horrified at what has happened here and how it was kept secret. But they didn't really involve all the institutions. The Congress people didn't know. Some of the presidents didn't know. It's an element inside the military and an element inside the big companies that make weapons, like Grumman the really big ones. And so it's not that huge of an element, and they've managed to keep it secret, partly because of the crimes that they've committed, because they've really scared people that if you say anything, your whole family might end up dead. And I mean, Hal Puthoff has said that they have told him that if he talks, he has already signed something that he could be eliminated, and then his family, he's been threatened with the elimination of his whole family. So those kind of tactics have been used to keep people quiet. So I don't know that it's all the institutions. Most of the people in the institutions didn't know about it, and I do think it's an element that people are going to be very, very upset when they see the whole picture. But that's, again, why we, all of us in the movement, all of us that want to see a positive future come out of all of this, we have to be, at a certain point, preparing for that. Right now, we're at NPI anyway, we're working really hard trying to figure out how to get the bills and the investigation and the lawsuit on RICO, all that. But there'll be a moment, not too far, maybe within a year, where we've got to be working with teams on what does a new paradigm look like afterwards. What kind of economy? What kind of negotiation process, diplomacy do we have with other beings in the galaxy? How do we relate to one another on the planet? Instead of, how do we come together where you've got the Chinese and the Russians and the Americans and everybody else together as humanity, preparing to represent our Earth in this larger arena? That is coming. Because you don't want to leave it to the guys that have been keeping it secret all this time to have them make all these decisions. It would, because their lens they have this national security lens, and I understand they're trying to take care of our security, but this lens we're stuck in this lens that is about war, and we want to have an open mind. Who are these beings? Where are they from? Why are they here? What do they want? And what do we want? And let's sit down and talk about this now. And I mean, it's a diplomacy process. And how do we negotiate? And what do they teach us? What do we teach them? And it's just it's going to take a lot of work. But then, after all, what else is there to do? I mean,
right. The benefit, once we get through this, of all the technology and everything that we can learn and how we can evolve as a species with the ET's help and being part of that galactic community, is an evolution. The way I see it, at least.
Right.
You were mentioning how dangerous it is, and how they threaten people. I'm curious, have you or Danny been threatened over the years since you've been working on the UAP disclosure?
No, we have not. No. Danny has been threatened in other projects. There was $100,000 contract out on his killing contract out on him during Iran-Contra. But our chief investigator figured out who was doing it and went right to their door, knocked on their door, and was very clear. I'm here. I know who you are. I know where you live. And I know what you're doing, and you better not do it. And it stopped. So that was the most dramatic, you might say. But we, sometimes it's been scary when Danny's been doing depositions that are really important depositions where you put people under oath to question them, and that person knows things that are going to be really important. And so there's been sometimes a lot of security around certain depositions and what have you. But I hate to say this, but I mean, usually the people that we have lost, and we have lost people in these cases, they are the witnesses. Because you can file a lawsuit, but if you don't have the witnesses to take the stand, if you don't have the people that have direct experience saying, I saw this, I know this is true, I have the document to this, or whatever.
Mhm.
And we lost people in Silkwood. We lost people in Iran Contra, more than one, um, and and people have been lost in some of the other cases that we've done. And it's the people who are really brave are the whistleblowers.
Mhm. And that's why he's putting those strong protections in the legislation. Because what Danny's working on, isn't it the legislation that Representative Eric Burleson is putting forward?
Yes, Eric Burleson asked Danny to draft some legislation for him that would be, because in September the Congress did not put the original Senate bill into the new National Defense Authorization Act, and so the question was, okay, now what? Some groups started saying, oh, I guess it's over. It'd be another 10 years before we have another disclosure moment. And we said, absolutely not. We got to keep going. The door is open here. The first bill was passed, even though it was weaker. We're in disclosure and we cannot stop. So we did this Global Disclosure Day. We worked with CFD folks all over the country to do watch parties and on the age of disclosure, etc. And in the meantime, Eric felt the same way and said, "Danny, will you go ahead and draft a bill for me so I can start working on something." I mean, we hope and pray that he will continue to be a strong leader. I see in 2026, to me, I just keep seeing, oh my God, we have to have a courageous Congress. I just keep using that term in my head. We have to have a courageous a Congress that will not be afraid to stand up and do what's right for the American people and for the future generations. So, and he so far, Eric Burleson is strong. He's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another comment from one of our viewers. He says, or he or she says, do you see any benefit in keeping classified technologies which could positively affect humankind, even if it would be used negatively? I feel like nuclear tech, it's better to publicly know.
Keeping classified technologies was good. Oh, in other words, the question of, are there some reasons to keep things classified?
Right.
Yeah, is it better to keep things classified?
So,
It's hard to say, except you'd have to kind of, there might be a situation where it was better to keep something classified, but it would be percentage wise a small percentage of things. Right now, we have, so much stuff classified that shouldn't be.
right.
There might be a situation where a reasonable person that was concerned about the country and humanity would say, I think we better not do that. We better not talk about that. But it's narrow. And in other words, for us, we might say, 1% or 2% of things are like that. Whereas if you get into the national security state perspective, you might have, 80, 90% of it being. Right. So but you have to have an open mind that there could be something, I think.
Who would be the decision makers in deciding what technologies would be unclassified or not?
Well, this is right now the research and the law into the law that Danny's been doing. Very, very, very good research. I mean, he's looking at all these different cases that have been before the Supreme Court, what all the different judges said during their comments, and all the different documents that were submitted to them. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. And he's showing definitively that the Congress right now has the right, the authority, and the responsibility to classify and declassify. The Congress, not the executive department. And yet, what has been going on ever
Right.
since World War II is that the executive department has been assuming this authority to classify and declassify, mainly to classify.
Mhm.
And in the law clearly states that that authority rests with the Congress. They can allow the executive to do it, but it rests with them so they can take it back.
So
But we
that's
have to
why
have that's
the
why I say
courageous Congress
we have to have a courageous Congress. That's right.
to take back their power. And
Right.
their power is given to us, the people, we the people. So that's why the grassroots is so important, because the Congress is our representatives, and they're there
That's right.
because of what we do.
Exactly.
A couple more questions here. Let's see. Stanbrook says or ask, what are our resources and assets in negotiation? I'm not quite sure what he means by that.
Resources and assets in negotiation.
Negotiation.
Interesting question. I don't. I know they have assets. The
You're talking
ETs
about
have assets. I
the
know
ET.
that
Okay.
because they have these incredible physics and ships, and uh,
Maybe
I,
maybe
I,
Stan
I,
can
I would
re-ask
say
or
this.
clarify that question.
I
And then,
think I have the answer. I think I know
okay.
what he's talking. Okay, huge asset that we have. We have a living planet. Everything on this planet has living DNA. I mean, it's living and it has DNA. We think that some of the reason why ETs from different places have come here is to get this DNA and take it to wherever they came from, because it appears that they may be trying to grow our animals or our plants or our insects or ourselves with hybrids in other places in the galaxy.
Mhm.
And because it's not these living planets like planet Earth are not the norm, because we can tell that with our 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 ships that are going, our cameras and stuff that are going out into the cosmos, and the pictures that are coming back to us are not mainly of blue and green planets. It's not that they're not there. We're sure that they're living planets with water and oxygen and all that, and maybe even other kinds of life, um, all all throughout the cosmos. But they're not the norm. And apparently, I mean, Earth is really is kind of like a Garden of Eden. It's
Mhm.
just burgeoning with life, and it births life every second
Mhm.
in many different ways. So, I mean, that is an asset
Mhm.
in any kind of negotiation. What do they want? What do they want, and why?
Mhm.
And what do we want? I mean, so that is certainly an asset that we have. There may be others.
Okay. Uh, Derek is asking another question. How do you expect so many different government agencies to cooperate for disclosure? They have different missions and oversight authorities.
Well, I think right now the most important thing is for the Senate and the House, congressional authority over classification, that the Senate and the House take steps to declassify this. They've got to declassify it, and they've got to start disclosing it and putting it in the National Archives and making it available. And and if this plan of having a review board, which was in the original Senate bill, to have a review board that then becomes a kind of an overseeing group for classification as things unfold, because there's a lot of material, right? So That review board would be, and it would, in the original Senate bill, it was said that the president would appoint the review board. I think in what Danny's proposal is that the Congress would assemble the review board. So that, and this is to make sure that it isn't all one perspective. Because some of the original discussions about the original Senate bill were, people really wanted people from these big tech companies, military tech companies, and the military intelligence Pentagon agencies to be on that board. Well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. They're the ones that have been keeping it secret for 80 years. So what we need is a review board that has a variety of perspectives from our population and our society and our communities, and that can bring a more diverse perspective to the question. And that review board would be the one that would say, that particular thing, I don't think we should release that because of 1, 2, 3. But it would have to be in a more limited way. It couldn't be just like, okay, 90% of this we're not releasing. It would have to be the other way around. I mean, a smaller percentage. They might say, no, I don't think we better do that right now. And I don't even know why. I mean, I'm just saying it could happen, but I'm not saying any particular example of it.
Another a question from Derek. James Fox recently, just yesterday, held a press event that featured individuals with firsthand accounts of the Virginia Brazil incident. Did you have a chance to watch any of it? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Well, I did not get a chance to watch any of it because we were working on other things here in California. However, I did ask our really intrepid, wonderful young social media and video staff person to go there, and he did. He's terrific. He's, I don't know, about 30 years old, and he does all of our social media. He makes videos all the time. Short ones, longer ones. He's just like the energy bunny, and he went there. He was there. He met a lot of important people, and he got a lot of video, which he is giving all of his video to James Fox for his use if he wishes to have it, and then he's also going to make a lot of little clips for social media use, and he said it was a very important gathering. There were about 125 people. He thought, he wasn't sure exactly. Very little press was there, but mostly the public. People from the public were there, and he said he was convinced. And he's been working in this field for 10 years. He's been at it all through his 20s, and he was convinced that these witnesses that were there were credible. And they were talking about their direct experience, and they gave a lot of detail about who else and what offices were involved, and what, just a lot of detail. And he was convinced that they were credible. And I feel it's sad that there wasn't more press, but we are going to help, of course, promote the film. We're in an alliance with them. We have a working relationship with him and his team. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I saw part of it too, and James Fox has a movie. I think it's out now. I think it's called Moment of Contact. Sara, I did want to ask you this question: are you an experiencer?
No, and neither is Danny. Neither one of us are experiencers.
I'm not either yet. I'm saying yet.
Right. We do have a couple people in our staff who are experiencers. So, and of course, Danny knows because he's been in the movement for over 40 years, and he knows a lot of people. Um, and I have met people now, because I've only been working on this for 2 years, but I have met people. I I am quite um, I'm very I want to say I feel that it's important that experiencers have a voice.
Mhm.
Their voice is not really in this. Look at this. I mean, they're not in the whistleblowers. They're not in. I mean, the whistleblowers are experiencers because they've had a contact of some kind, but it's
Mhm.
not like the abduction stuff.
Mhm.
That's that's all being kept over here,
Well,
and
when I
I
say experiencer, I don't necessarily mean abduction because I see abduction as a negative experience and kind of something that the person didn't necessarily want. Because there's with CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where people are actually going out, coming together,
right.
reaching out, and trying to speak to the ETs, trying to communicate with them. And
Yes.
there's not just one race, there's not only one species, there are many different species. This
Yeah.
is what I'm learning over, the last really 2 years myself of getting into this topic. Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer is how I started learning about this back when '93, when he started with his first press club, press conference back then.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think no, I agree with you. It's a range of experiences, and the CE5 people are having them regularly. They're having experiences. So, but I'm very interested in the abduction element of all of this because John Mack and Danny was John's lawyer
Mhm.
for 10 years. They worked together, and
John Mack was the Harvard psychiatrist who I understand was at the CIA. That people who had abduction experiences, they sent those people to John Mack to, I guess, assess their condition or document or find out what happened.
yes, there was a fellow that brought a lot of people to John to evaluate were they of sound mind or not, and he started out, not knowing anything about this and thinking, well, I don't know, but and he was the head of the psychiatric clinic at Harvard and a professor, and he was talking to people that were from different parts of the country that did not know one another, but their stories were so similar. Their stories of their abduction experiences. He definitely became convinced that they were of sound mind. They had had an experience, and they had, it was credible. So he wrote a book called Abductions, and but the point I wanted to make about this is that he concluded in his 10 years of work on this, and he formed Peer, uh, which was an organization that was, you know, working on this with him. But he concluded that um, these experiences that even though it would start out and people were really frightened and really afraid and traumatized, even over time, most of the people saw it as a growth in their consciousness and a almost like a blessing
Mhm.
that they were able to participate in something like this.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's important to me, because he did a lot of research with a lot of people, and um, but uh, the question still remains: what are the abductions all about? What is going on? It's
Right.
disclosure again. We need to know.
Well,
What?
Dr. Greer says that a lot of those abduction cases are actually the government doing those things
Yes,
to
my lab.
people. And also I've heard that a lot of those cases that John Mack got were those government abductions, as opposed to, contact with people, that just happen to communicate with the ETs that are telepathic or have had relationships with them. I wanted to share some comments. Nebulous Corner, I know she's an experiencer. She has developed the United Experiencers Initiative to give experiencers a voice and tell their stories. And she also says that not all abductions are negative.
Right.
And also, Stan also says, thanks in advance for the efforts toward disclosure. Stay blessed. I know we're past an hour, and I know you have another appointment coming up, but I wanted to pass those along to
Yes.
to you, those comments. Um, so uh, we probably should wrap up right now. So, what final words would you have, especially when it comes to being part of the New Paradigm Institute? I'm going to put the link, or not the link, but the website here. Um, uh, what's your
Right.
call to the people who might
Yes.
be who are not part of the Citizens for Disclosure yet, but are interested in this and want to become part of the organization?
Yeah. There, I would say this is good. This is a wonderful community to join right now. If this is, people are finding it's meaningful in their lives. This has so much meaning. It's positive because we're not we're bipartisan. We have completely open arms to all people and respect all people's perspectives. And we listen to one another, and we approach things with kindness rather than, with sort of negative fighting. And we encourage that at the local level as well as at the national level. We got to listen to one another. We see this as a journey where we are all on a sacred journey together that could change humanity and our future for the better in many, many different ways, right? So, if I just hope that many, many good people will come into this movement and be part of it. If you go to our website, you can just sign up for the newsletter if you just want to start getting information, because we're putting information out every week, and we're trying all the time to be as careful as we can about what's credible, and not put a bunch of stuff out that's just confusing and maybe not well grounded or whatever, and put out the information that people can count on. Well, okay, this is solid. And so that is very important um, assignment that we have, is to put out credible information. So if you want to start getting educated, and we have a lot of we have a learning library. We have all kinds of resources for you to access and to learn from. And we also have Danny's classes. He gave several classes when we were with the Ubiquity Institute. We don't work with them anymore on these classes, but those classes are also learning. It's for learning. Dolan did them as well, and a couple other people. So those exist as well, and so that's the simplest thing to do, is to just sign up for the newsletter. But you can also become a citizen for disclosure. You can sign up as a citizen for disclosure and be part of the grassroots movement. And we're training people in how to be effective at a grassroots level, how to do press conferences and tabling and watch parties with these different videos. There's a lot of videos now, and build alliances at the local level, just as we're working on building them nationally. That's going to be fun. I mean, and we're providing a lot of resources to that. I mean, some people come into the Citizens for Disclosure and they say, "Holy mackerel! I've never seen anything so you've got a whole bunch of resources just available for me to work with right now in the get go. So, we're continuing to develop those, and then and we're in 31 states now. Used to be 35. It kind of goes ebbs and flows. We're in 31 states now. We're going for all 50, of course, and then we start really developing the local teams in all the congressional districts. So the more people that come in and the more people that are in these various congressional districts, the more power, the people power that we're going to have.
Mhm.
And then if you want to support us financially, this is really important. We can't do all these things without nonprofit support, because we're a nonprofit, so we completely exist on contributions. And we're always looking for seed money, larger money, where somebody could, give us a significant grant to do the rest of this RICO case, or to develop the certain educational materials, or to get all these materials printed and available for the grassroots or whatever. And but then also some people are becoming a donor, like a automatic donor every month
Mhm.
for as low
Like
as
a
five,
membership.
and that's membership. And to
Mhm.
that's the lowest on that is $5 a month, and you're a member. Then we have gatherings with members where Danny and I give updates and briefings at different times on a regular basis, and so the members get some special information, and so all of those different kind of categories of activity are extremely helpful to make this whole thing happen. So I invite all of you to consider doing all of them.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for your time. And I hope that maybe in the future we can have you come back, and because there's so many more questions and you're such a wealth of knowledge, um, that it would be great to have you back. But I
Thank
want to
you.
thank you for your time tonight, for answering the questions, and for all that you've done for humanity, really. You and Danny are just a power couple, and you're just making such a difference. And I know that the love and the passion that you have, it spreads out, through the organization. People feel it. So
Thank
we've
you.
got many thanks in the comments. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go because we're an hour and 15 minutes.
It was
So I
fun.
know,
Thank you so much
yes,
for inviting
you're
me. Thank you.
welcome. You're so welcome. And thank you. All right. Well, take care. And so I want to say to everyone, thank you so much for watching tonight. And if please join the New Paradigm Institute. Uh, just newparadigminstitute.org. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone. Peace out, and keep looking up.